Когда я увидела абсолютно незнакомую девушку, которая заявила, что она моя сестра, но троюродная, я довольно сильно удивилась. Но это удивление умножилось еще в 100 раз после того, как Инга начала мне сообщать, что я просто обязана ее приодеть и украсить. А вот тут-то меня накрыло волной праведного гнева. Петя, муж, тоже не выдержал. Сколько можно пользоваться нашей добротой? Пыль стояла в тот вечер просто до потолка. У меня до сих пор эхом в ушах стоит голос родни, которые выставили нас с Петром насмех. Ну вы прям эти, как их, Рокфеллеры? Да нет, какие Рокфеллеры? Кооператоры. Этим словом из 90-х окрестила нас свекровь Полина Алексеевна. Она бы еще слово «спекулянты» ввернула для полноты картины. Или она новомодный сериал поглядела, слово «пацана». Тоже на волне находится. Знаете, как обидно, когда вместо поддержки на вас сыпется целый ливень насмешек. Я попыталась взять себя в руки. Но мы же с Петром не зря получали дипломы экономистов. Знаем, как нужно открывать малый бизнес. И вообще, мы что, собрались обсуждать наши с Петей дела? Сегодня же день рождения Полины Алексеевны. Давайте праздновать, наконец. Петр меня поддержал. И вправду, Алена права. Что вы заладили? Не выйдет, прогорите. Вот когда прогорим, когда у нас не все выйдет, тогда и будете нас обсуждать. Но этого не случится, понятно? У нас отличный бизнес-план, все будет как нельзя лучше. Я читала, что нужно посылать во Вселенную только позитивные мысли и вибрации, подхватила я. Нужно мыслить как победитель, чтобы победить. Мы с Петей уже богатые люди. Знаете почему? Потому что мы таковыми себя считаем. Родственники слегка притихли. Вероятно, они не ожидали от нас с мужем такого напора. Затем мой папа сказал задумчиво. «И впрямь, ребята, чего мы набросились на детей? Опять же, у Полины день рождения. Нашей дорогой свати. Все поздравления сегодня летят только в ее адрес». «Ура!» – в один голос закричали родственники. «Долгие лета, Полина. С моим мужем Петром мы знакомы еще с институтской скамьи. Вместе в КВН играли, учились на одном курсе. Петя был капитаном нашей команды. Бабки решают все. Надеюсь, вы поняли тонкую игру слов. Для будущих финансистов эта тема особенно актуальна. Аленка, как только получаем дипломы, сразу же идем в ЗАГС. Заявление подавать, согласна?» – предложил мне Петя. «Просто в своей жизни я никого кроме тебя не вижу. Я тоже, Петенька», – отвечаю я. «Мне с тобой даже молчать уютно. А это самый главный показатель в семейных отношениях. А у меня чувство, что я знаю тебя всю жизнь», – признается Петр. «Мы две половинки одного целого». А вот такая романтика, которая ничуть не охладела с того момента, когда мы стали официально мужем и женой. После получения диплома и свадьбы мы с Петром устроились в различные коммерческие фирмы. Я экономистом, а Петя маркетологом. Однако работать на чужого дядю нам не очень понравилось. После того, как мы провели в офисе 2 года, другого мнения просто быть не могло. Нужно открывать собственное дело. Как думаешь, Алена, что может принести прибыль? Мы с Петром сидим в небольшом уютном кафе, недалеко от моего офиса. Супруг часто приезжал ко мне во время обеденного перерыва, просто поболтать. Благо, мы работали недалеко друг от друга. «Ну», – протянула я задумчиво, – «нужно затеять что-то такое, чтобы не в тягость было. Вертится на языке, а сформулировать никак не могу. А ты обратила внимание, что в нашем районе нет ни одной кофейни?» – вдруг спросил меня Петя. «Порой хочется побаловать себя чашечкой американо или капучино, но приходится в центр ехать. Бон аппетит», – вдруг сказала симпатичная официантка, что принесла нам заказанную пиццу. «Приятного аппетита». «Бон аппетит», – хлопнула я себя ладошкой по лбу. «Это же название кофейни». «Какой еще кофейни?» – не понял меня супруг. «Мы же в кафе «Звездное» сидим. Это игра слов. Аппетит – начало наших с тобой имен». Подняла я вверх указательный палец. «А, это Алена. Пет – Петр». Я торжествующе поглядела на мужа. «Понял, наконец. А в этом что-то есть», – кивнул головой Петя. «Свежо, креативно. Давай сегодня вечером все обсудим. Мелочи, детали, нюансы». Так мы и поступили. Я не буду утомлять вас всеми тонкостями процесса открытия нашего заведения. Скажу лишь одно, что нам потребовались определенные финансовые вложения. «Наши родители далеко не миллионеры», – рассуждал Петр. «В родне тоже таких не имеется. Выход один – нужно идти в банк». «Что ж, попробуем», – кивнула я. «Бизнес-план у нас с тобой очень хороший, подробный. Уверена, нам пойдут навстречу». Удача была на нашей стороне. Нам была одобрена необходимая сумма денег, которую мы заявили. Далее мы построили небольшой, но очень уютный павильон. Благо, современные стройматериалы позволяют это сделать очень быстро. Через некоторое время мы с Петром удовлетворенно разглядывали наше детище – кафе «Бон аппетит». «Надо как-то привлечь клиентов», – задумчиво произнес муж. «Слушай, Аленка, помнишь, когда мы учились в вузе, у нас ребята создали кавер-группу? Они поют хиты известных исполнителей. Давай обзвоним своих однокашников. Пусть нам помогут хорошей музыкой, привлекут людей. Завтра с утра этим займусь», – пообещала я. Тем более все их контакты у меня сохранились. И тут Фортуна нам улыбнулась. Ребята согласились нам помочь. Мы назначили день открытия. Выбрали субботу. Мы пригласили всю нашу родню. Пусть видят, что мы с Петей не лыком шиты. «Какой отличный кофе», – похвалила мама. Они с отцом сидели за столиком и наслаждались бодрящим, чуть горьким напитком. «А кто у вас кофейник?» – спросил с соседнего столика свекор. Они со свекровью тоже пришли. Не могли пропустить такой волнующий момент. «Папа, ну какой кофейник?» – снисходительно улыбнулся Петя. «Человек, который готовит кофе, называется бариста». «Здорово», – оценила свекровь. «Сынок, попроси своего Барбариса, пусть он мне кофе с пенкой сделает. И еще я хочу одно пирожное». Помимо наших родственников пришло довольно много народа. Тем более, что мы заявили в пригласительных флаерах, что в день открытия все напитки и угощения совершенно бесплатно. «Ты не считал, сколько народу пришло?» – спросила я вечером мужа. «Начал было», – рассмеялся он, но потом сбился. «Одно могу сказать. Людей было немало. Наше уютное заведение стало довольно популярным. Это было очень легко объяснить. У нас были очень привлекательные цены, вкусные напитки, приветливый персонал. Спасибо, ребята», – благодарили нас посетители. «Это просто открытие для нашего района. Классная кофейня. Будем рекомендовать всем своим знакомым». Так оно и вышло. Благо, сарафанное радио в нашей стране работает превосходно. Мы стали выходить на приличный доход. Нужно подарки родителям сделать, как ты считаешь? Петр просматривал наши доходы. «Думаю, всем предкам мы купим по нормальному телефону. А то ходят, как динозавры с кнопочными». Сказано, сделано. Нашим мамам и папам очень понравились подарки. Они долго нас благодарили, а свекровь даже попросила прощения. Вот уж до последнего не верила, что вас ждет успех. Но раз так, примите мои извинения и поздравления. Желаю вам процветания. Мы от всей души поблагодарили Полину Алексеевну. Добрые слова о ней кошке приятны, как говорится. Мы подошли к нашему делу с душой. К каждому относились очень внимательно. Людям очень это нравится. В Бон аппетит начали проводить небольшие семейные вечера. К нам приходили веселые компании и влюбленные пары. Прошло около года. «Петь, я поглядела, у родителей кухонный гарнитур старый. Давай им на годовщину свадьбы подарим новый», – предложила я мужу. «Это будет просто идеальный подарок». «Почему бы и нет?» – согласился муж. «Красивая дата, красивый подарок». Мои родители не знали, как нас благодарить. Были просто на седьмом небе от счастья. Я вновь предлагаю супругу. Твоя мама очень любит сериалы смотреть, а телевизор – допотопный кубик. Я считаю, что это непорядок. Подарим твоим родителям умный телевизор. И вновь нас благодарят, радуются нашему общему с мужем успеху. Мы решили расширить бизнес. Благо средства позволяли. В разных точках города мы открыли еще 2 кофейни. Ведь название нашей кофейни уже было на устах горожан. Но вскоре наши родители оказали нам просто медвежью услугу, после которой у нас на душе остался очень неприятный осадок. В один из дней мы с мужем сидели в офисе, а у нас уже был небольшой уютный офис. Петру позвонили. Он глянул на экран. Неизвестный номер. Хотя я жду звонок от поставщиков оборудования. Может быть, это кто-то из них? «Петро, привет, дорогой!» Громким голосом закричала трубка. «Это дядя Валера, двоюродный брат твоей мамы, не отвлекаю?» «Здравствуйте, дядя Валера», — приветливо ответил муж. «Не очень, что случилось?» «Тут такое дело, старичок», — ответила трубка. «Затеял я, значит, новую «Ладу» купить. Ну, ты, наверное, видел. Их еще по телеку рекламируют». «Допустим», — ответил Петр. «Поздравляю вас». «Да рано еще поздравлять-то, старичок», — проговорила трубка. «Денег не хватает, чтобы они лопнули. Около сотенки. Не дашь? Твоя мама говорит, ты крутым бизнесменом стал. Как Оксана, кстати, поживает». «Какая Оксана?» — не понял Петр. «Ну как какая? Жена твоя», — проговорила трубка. «Детишек-то не планируете?» «Мою жену зовут Аленой», — отчеканил муж. «Вы извините, дядя Валера, но с деньгами ничего не выйдет. Они все в деле. «Кстати, а откуда у вас мой номер телефона?» «Так твоя мама мне его дала и сказала, что ты парень безотказный. Если что, можно обращаться». Голос Валерия стал грустным. Петя еще раз сказал, что денег нет, и повесил трубку. «Ерунда какая-то», – пробормотал он. «По-моему, нас начали путать с банком». Звонки, тем не менее, не прекращались. Причем на мой телефон тоже. Не подойти мы не могли, потому что активно сотрудничали с многими людьми. Просьбы от дальней родни были самыми банальными. То на дачу, то на ремонт, то на свадьбу какой-то Валерии. Мы объехали своих родителей и сообщили, что мы не собираемся кормить многочисленных родственников. В конце концов, деньги мы не рисуем. Они достаются нам тяжким трудом. Это со стороны кажется, что ты просто сидишь в офисе и стрижешь купоны. Но это далеко не так. Чашу нашего с мужем терпения переполнил визит некой прыщавой особы, которая представилась Ингой, моей троюродной сестрой. В тот вечер мы сидели дома, наслаждались тишиной после напряженного дня, смеялись над шутками резидентов Comedy Club. В двери позвонили. Петр пошел открывать, и через минуту я услышала его удивленный голос. «Алена, это тебя? Какая-то Инга». Я вышла в коридор и увидела девушку лет 25, довольно скромно одетую. «Алена, сестренка, неужели не узнаешь? Мы же в детстве все лето у бабушки Наташи проводили. А я вот зайти решила. Мне адрес твоя мама дала». Я радушно пригласила Ингу войти. Та проследовала в гостиную. Задала пару дежурных вопросов о погоде и нашем бизнесе. А затем выпалила такое, что я чуть поднос с чаем на пол не уронила. «Ты должна дать мне деньги на дорогую одежду и украшения», — заявила сестра. «Стоп, Инга». Я резко поставила поднос на стол и выпрямилась. «Тебя не учили выбирать тон, когда приходишь в гости? И что это значит «ты должна»? Я никому ничего не должна. Разве что, пожалуй, банку». «Ой, прости, Алена, я не очень верно выразилась». Начала лепетать Инга. «Я прошу тебя. Вот так будет точнее. Мне твоя мама сказала, что вы ребята богатые и очень добрые. Типа никому не отказываете. Интересная она молва ходит в народе», — проговорил Петя. «А для чего тебе одежда, украшения, можно поинтересоваться?» «Я парня нашла по интернету. У нас типа роман», — зачастила Инга. «Он мне свидание назначил, а идти не в чем. Вот я и решила у вас попросить, так сказать. Ты же моя сестра, которую я даже не могу вспомнить», — ответила я. «Знаешь, Инга, ничего личного. Просто в последнее время к нам обращаются словно в благотворительный фонд. Но это далеко не так. Если есть желание, можешь заходить в нашу кофейню. Там тебя всегда угостят за счет заведения. Но не больше того. Извини». Инга ушла крайне недовольная. Мы же проводили ее крайне изумленные. Вот ведь родственники. От добра добра ищут. Мы с Петром подумали и решили больше никому не помогать. Чем ты лучше относишься к людям, тем наглее они становятся. Людскую природу, к сожалению, не переделать. Родители на нас почему-то в обиде. В обиде, да и звонки не прекращаются. Мы с мужем поставили блокираторы. А деловые контакты все сохранены. Живем особняком и ни о чем не жалеем. Видит Бог, мы и так сделали много хорошего для близких.
All right, everyone's presentations are done. Nick, the manager, said as he tried to move the discussion forward. Excuse me, I haven't. I recently found out something. Nick interrupted me and began to speak. There's apparently someone in this department who didn't graduate high school and is just a part-timer. Meetings should be for employees only. Absolutely right. His lackey, Mike, of course, agreed with Nick. I'm leaving. After leaving the meeting room, I started to shut down my computer. I noticed that an email had arrived, not in my personal inbox, but in the company's shared email. Thinking, there's no point in speaking up, no one will listen, I went home quietly. The next day, I heard a commotion from Nick's desk. He was staring at his computer screen, his face pale. Nick? Is something wrong? Mike looked at the screen with him. And he turned even paler than Nick. Why is he so angry? Knowing the reason for Mike's distress, I thought to myself, serves them right. My name is Adam. My mother passed away when I was in the 9th grade, and I was raised by my father. Well, you could hardly call it being raised. After my mother passed, my father changed. He drowned his sorrows in alcohol, and though he still went to work, he squandered our living expenses on horse racing. Because of that, I had to start working part-time as soon as I entered high school. Every month, I went to the convenience store with bills in hand that couldn't be auto-deducted from my father's account. Even though I endured it because I didn't want to be alone, I reached my limit in my second year of high school and dropped out. I found a live-in job at a distant inn. Thank you for everything. The day I left home, my father, still staring at the TV, spoke. Take care. That was our last conversation. Back then, 18 wasn't the age of majority, so I needed my father's permission to work, and I couldn't hide my place of employment. Yet, my father never visited me even once. I kept working just to survive, and before I knew it, I was 42. Years of hard work paid off, and I was transferred to the headquarters. I was thrilled to be recognized by the company, as I thought I'd be working in the field until retirement due to my lack of formal education. Listen up. Our work can change the future of our employees. Don't drag us down. On my first day after the transfer, Nick, dressed in an expensive suit, spoke sternly. There was a reason for this. Our inn was located in a prominent tourist destination, known so well that everyone in the state could sing its commercial jingle. At its peak, we had 5 locations within the state. But that was long ago. Due to financial difficulties and aging facilities, only the place where I had worked for many years and the original establishment remained. I was prepared to lose my job anytime, but now there was a glimmer of hope. With the rise of social media, the tourist area where the inn was located started gaining attention again. Depending on how hard the sales department, where I was transferred, worked, we could either thrive or be forced to give up this prime location to the new hotel chains continuously popping up. For Nick, who had switched careers from another industry to strengthen our sales, this was a battle he couldn't afford to lose. I understood why he had to be strict. I will do my best. Nick sneered at my enthusiastic declaration. Did you not hear what I said? I'm sorry. I thought I was listening carefully. Out of habit from years of customer service, I apologized reflexively, though I had no idea what had offended him. Someone was watching me with a smirk. In this department, there are those who are expected to excel and those who have been shoved here because they have nowhere else to go. You are the latter. It was Mike, the section chief. He's 7 years younger, at 35. But he was called to headquarters much earlier than I was and had been moving around within the headquarters ever since. I'm not jealous, but I can't accept that he's my boss. Graduating from a prestigious university, he has an unusually high pride and caused many problems as a newbie, making things very difficult for me when I was the front desk leader. When I found out Mike was transferred to the sales department a month before me, I was disheartened. Mike is right. With just a middle school diploma, there's not much you can do. Don't even think about achieving results. As if I didn't exist, Nick remarked, I'm thirsty. Mike eagerly ran to the coffee maker. It seems Mike is Nick's lackey. I regretted being happy about my transfer to headquarters, wishing I had stayed on site forever. Send a direct mail to every company on this list by the end of the day. Nick only assigned me tasks that even a new graduate could handle. What? There are over 1,000 companies. You want me to send to all of them by today? Yes, if you and your fellow misfits split the work, even those with nowhere else to go should finish by today. I glanced at the employees typing away expressionlessly. They were worn out from customer service, only thinking about leaving on time, or were women reassigned after having children, with zero motivation for work. Even Sam, a new graduate from the same university as Mike, who was supposed to be among the expected achievers, had no enthusiasm for the job, having joined the company wanting to do customer service. I don't care what they say, I plan to quit anytime, he said. Only Nick and Mike were highly motivated, making all the decisions between the two of them. I originally only wanted to work at the inn to survive and had no particular attachment to this job. I swallowed my words, thinking I had no right to reprimand them. About a month after the transfer, Nick told us with a frustrated look. To commemorate the 50th anniversary, we've decided to create a plan exclusive for one group per day. Originally, Mike and I were supposed to come up with it, but our president, Mr. Thompson, insists on hearing everyone's opinions. So, you all get a chance. As Nick explained, Mike began handing out prints. Make sure not to embarrass Nick. If your ideas are half-baked, you'll have to redo them. It seemed that they had printed his handwritten notes by Mr. Thompson, which included several questions and a section for free responses. It made sense why Nick had to seek our input, given that all responses had to be submitted to Mr. Thompson. We were given a week to think about it, and a meeting was scheduled to compile our ideas. My plan is to let guests enjoy both the old and modern America. Nick began the presentations. Guests would watch a master confectioner at a nearby traditional sweet shop make sweets in front of them. The welcome drink would be premium tea in a bottle. Nick's plan was certainly attractive. After his presentation, Nick called on us to present in the order we were seated. Just as I stood up for my turn. "All right, everyone's presentations are done." "Excuse me, I haven't. I recently found out something." Nick interrupted me. "There's someone in this department who didn't graduate high school and is just a part-timer." He was likely talking about me. I joined the company as a part-timer and was made a full-time employee when I turned 20. That was 20 years ago, so Nick and Mike probably had no chance to know until recently. Meetings should be for employees only. Absolutely right. After that, Nick kept creating opportunities to solicit everyone's opinions, purposefully excluding me from speaking. The meeting unexpectedly heated up and went past the scheduled end time. A few people asked to leave, and the discussion continued with the remaining few. "Still here?" Normally, you'd leave in that situation. Though I had no attachment to the job initially, hearing kind words from customers made me want to make them happier. For someone like me, with nowhere to go, the inn was my home and customer service was my life. I felt pathetic about my current self. "I'm leaving." I left the conference room and started shutting down my computer. I noticed an email had arrived, not in my personal inbox, but in the company's shared email. Thinking no one would listen to what I had to say anyway, I quietly went home. The next day, while preparing the DM as instructed, I heard a commotion from Nick's desk. In his haste to stand up, he hit his knee on the desk. He stared at his computer screen, his face pale. "Nick! What's wrong?" Mike, thinking he should be the first to rush over, approached Nick while still wearing his coat. He peered at the screen with Nick. And he turned even paler than Nick. Why is he so angry? Who is responsible for this company? Nick, more irritated than ever, asked, and Mike answered without checking. Probably Sam. Sam wasn't there because he was attending a morning training session for new hires. Nick gave up on getting angry and returned his gaze to the screen. They were looking at an email that arrived right after the end of the working day yesterday. Apparently, no one, including me, had checked it before leaving. The email was from a large company that used us for their annual employee trips. The president and executives of that company also frequently used our services personally. President of the company, Mr. Mason himself, had declared that neither he nor his company would ever use our services again. Well, some companies cancel their employee trips or stop using our services due to financial struggles. Let's just move on. Mike kept wiping the sweat from his forehead with a handkerchief. Knowing why Mike was so agitated, I quietly watched their interaction. "Do you know how much revenue we get from that company? We can find other guests to fill the rooms, but we'll lose the banquet costs, gift shop revenue, rental car fees, and more. Moreover, the gifts were supposed to be prepared by the traditional confectionery shop involved in Nick's proposed plan. If it's known that we incurred such a huge loss at this critical time, Nick's position in the company would be jeopardized." Nick took a deep breath, seemingly trying to calm himself. "All right, Mike. Go to New York right now and apologize to Mr. Mason." "What? You're coming with me, right? I have urgent work to do." "I trust you, which is why I'm entrusting this to you." "Please." Mike, believing Nick's sincerity, agreed with a determined look on his face, saying, "Yes. That's Nick for you." Even if Mike went to apologize, Nick would shift all the blame onto him if the client didn't change their mind. Well, it was Mike's fault to begin with, so it served him right. About 3 hours later, Sam answered a call from somewhere and repeatedly apologized, saying, "I'm very sorry." Everyone watched to see what was happening. After ending the call, he informed Nick with a weary tone. When Mike arrived at the client's company, he only made things worse, further infuriating Mr. Mason. He was demanding, "Get his boss here immediately." It was no wonder Sam was exhausted, dealing with such a call right after returning from training. What is that idiot doing? Alright, Adam, you're coming with me. If sacrificing Mike didn't work, then I must be next. Normally, I'd want to refuse at all costs, but I saw an opportunity in this situation. If I can be of assistance, I'd be happy to join you. I obediently followed Nick, and we flew to New York. When we introduced ourselves at the reception, it became clear how serious the situation was, as the receptionist personally escorted us to the president's office. Angry voices leaked through the door, making both Nick and me uneasy. Excuse me. I'm Nick, the supervisor. I understand my subordinate has caused you trouble, and I deeply apologize. Nick, with his experience in the corporate world, knew enough to offer an apology before excuses. However, his customer service skills left much to be desired. I sighed as I saw Mike trembling like a small dog in the corner of the room. What kind of training are you giving your subordinates? Mr. Mason glared at Nick with a red face. The intensity of his gaze made even Nick take a step back. Regrettably, I joined this company only 2 years ago and was unaware of Mike's issues. I should have identified his shortcomings sooner. Indeed. I should have realized sooner. No sensible person would come to apologize and then give a lengthy presentation on the drawbacks of not using their in. Nick froze, his mouth slightly open. Suspecting the worst, I picked up the documents that had fallen to the floor. It seemed Mike hastily prepared these documents on the plane, listing the disadvantages. Disadvantage 1: if you change the venue for the company trip, employees might suspect it's for cost-cutting reasons, leading to a negative impression. Reading it aloud half-jokingly, Nick snatched the papers from my hand and checked the contents with a furious expression. Among the stack of documents was a receipt from a nearby convenience store's copy machine. I felt a pang of dread, hoping he hadn't shown the receipt as well. What do you think he said when I asked what kind of nerve he had to do this? I'm very sorry. Faced with the dire situation, Nick must have thought there was nothing left to do but apologize. In a voice smaller than I'd ever heard from him, he uttered words of apology. He said, "I'm a Harvard graduate. I don't believe I said anything wrong." Mike! What have you done? Forgetting his plan to pin the blame on Mike, Nick yelled loudly, even in front of Mr. Mason. I didn't do anything wrong. You're still saying that? Look at him. Mike pointed at me with a shaking hand. I was assigned to headquarters in my 20s and now I'm a section chief. This guy only made it to headquarters at 42. Everything I've done proves I was right. So why are we losing the contract? Having said his piece, Mike collapsed to the floor. Of course. You were sent there because you had nowhere else to go. Mike never expected to hear such words from someone he looked down upon. He lunged at me, and Nick hurriedly stepped in to stop him. Mr. Thompson told me Mike is a quick thinker, and to take good care of him. There's no way he was pushed aside. Don't make things worse here. He didn't say quick thinker, he said only quick-witted, didn't he? I don't remember that part. I recalled the many troubles Mike caused when he was a newbie. When Mike was on the front line, his pride was so high that he never apologized to customers. Customer service, especially in our job, doesn't work alone. It brings both good and bad situations. If the front staff or housekeepers made mistakes, or the cleaning company didn't properly clean a room, one had to apologize to the customers regardless of personal fault. Mike, in such situations, would never apologize, insisting he wasn't at fault. This often angered customers, and as the front desk leader, I frequently had to apologize on his behalf. He caused complaints and disrupted operations, which is why he was quickly moved to headquarters. In departments where he didn't interact directly with customers, his quick thinking was beneficial and things went well. But it seemed his flaws were starting to show. Corporate reservations are supposed to be entered into the system by the sales representative. But a quick check yesterday revealed that more than 10 items were missing from the client's reservation. The handover document clearly stated what needed to be prepared. Why didn't you enter it into the system? Why do we have to give them special treatment? Filling rooms near the banquet hall, setting up all the food in advance. Specifying the brand of wine, they're too demanding. No wonder he always angered customers, I thought, feeling a headache coming on. Grouping them in rooms near the banquet hall is for our benefit too. It makes it easier for the staff to set up beds and serve breakfast since everyone's schedule is synchronized. As for the other requests, Mr. Mason suggested them to lighten our load. I didn't know that. Nick finally seemed to realize that Mike was the one who had angered the client. What did you say to them? I just told them we wouldn't give them special treatment anymore. We shouldn't waste effort on things that don't bring in money. I was utterly exasperated at his lack of understanding of customer service. Of course, we shouldn't comply with unreasonable demands. But carrying over successful practices from past stays makes customers feel remembered and enhances their experience. Good memories encourage repeat visits. That's part of our job. I looked down at Mike, who was sitting on the floor. In our job, nothing is a waste. Mr. Thompson likely moved you to the sales department, hoping you'd finally understand this. How do you think he feels now that you've failed to meet his expectations? Mike, tears in his eyes, fled the president's office. I was amazed he still hadn't apologized. You have it tough, Adam. It's okay, we're all employees of the same company. I deeply apologize for this disrespectful incident. Especially after all the care you've shown us. If it weren't for you, Adam, I really would have stopped staying here. When I heard you were moving to the sales department, I was willing to reconsider if you handled it. Seeing us talk so amicably, Nick's face contorted. Do you two know each other? Adam's service is excellent. I always requested him specifically. Normally, we don't accept specific staff requests, but we made an exception for Mr. Mason, adjusting my shifts accordingly. He had personally stayed at our hotel just before my transfer, and during casual conversation, I mentioned, I'm moving to the sales department soon. If I hadn't told him then, things could have been much worse. Please continue to take care of us. I look forward to it. On the return flight, Nick awkwardly offered me a can of beer. It's still working hours. Of course, I had no intention of forgiving him for a single beer. Nick might try to pin everything on Mike and avoid any consequences. While pondering this, a startling fact came to light. Nick, the tea bottles for the plan have arrived. I handed Nick a bottle labeled with our inn's name. They look good. What are you talking about? These are plastic bottles. I had assumed we would use the trendy, high-end bottling tea. But what arrived were ordinary plastic bottles of tea with customized labels. The only unique aspect was the label, which had the inn's name, making it look customized. Upon further investigation, I discovered that a substantial amount of money was set to be paid to the tea company. It was priced like bottling tea. Does this plastic bottle really cost $100 each? The tea inside is specially blended for us. The extra cost is for that. Wouldn't it be better to use another tea company? Or is there a specific reason we must use this one? As Nick continued to make excuses, I showed him a printed email. I informed the tea company's president, Mr. Mitchell, that we discovered irregular payments and he confessed. He said you two were high school classmates and planned to split the extra money. That idiot. Why did he confess? That's not important. You should worry about yourself, this could turn into a police matter. Opening the bottle cap, I suggested. How about calming down with this tea? It supposedly has a relaxing effect. Nick drank the tea frantically. In the following days, decisions were made about their fates. Mike was reassigned to the General Affairs Department, with no chance of transfer or promotion, as per Mr. Thompson's orders. As for Nick, since the payment to the tea company hadn't yet been made, he narrowly avoided legal trouble. Instead, he was encouraged to leave the company, and to avoid further complications, Nick submitted his resignation. Rumor has it that connections between HR departments have made it difficult for him to find new employment. Even though it was good to have those two gone, something unexpected happened in the sales department. Everyone became motivated and united in refining the 50th anniversary plan. In the end, my plan was adopted. We collaborated with the Tourist Information Center to provide personalized guides. The plan, tailored to the number of guests, was truly special for the 50th anniversary. Hey, is Adam's family coming to stay? I immediately booked that special plan for my family. Sam noticed it on the reservation list and quickly picked up on it. Yes, I'm inviting my father. That's great. I might invite my parents too. I lacked the courage to face my father just as Adam. But here, with the confidence Mr. Mason praised, I felt ready. The 50th anniversary plan was a perfect opportunity to reconnect with my father. I hoped to bring back the days when we could laugh together as we once did.